All right, beauties, welcome to the Wearebe podcast. It's Shelly, your host today, and I have the honor of introducing a complete boss babe, someone who came from fashion, made her way into beauty. She is the CEO of the Glow concept and the fast beauty brand Winky Lux. She raised $6 million series to fund the experience. Within 18 months, Winky Lux generated $4 million in sales as a bootstrapped company. She is one to be reckoned with and someone who has showed the male-dominated investors what women in beauty really can do. Welcome to the podcast, Natalie Mackey.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're a busy lady, and so I'm grateful that we're connecting and we're going to bring a lot of value to women in beauty. So can you share with us and the listeners, what was your background, and then how did you end up as a co-founder of these huge beauty brands?
Oh, thank you. I started my career a long time ago in finance, and then I ended up in fashion and mostly in branding and licensing. I got into the beauty world about 4 years ago, and I just was sort of in love with it for most of my life. I've always loved the beauty industry as a consumer, but it was really fun. We saw a great white space to start creating some really fun products in the past 4 years.
I love that. And you guys are super creative with the Winky Lux brand specifically. Where did that creative, colorful rainbow unicorns, cupcake flowers inspiration come from?
It really, it comes from our team who's super, super fun, and they really love, and myself, I think we all love, creating really pretty and precious and beautiful stuff. A lot of the other creativity though comes from our customers, who are really some of our most, active and engaged people. So they give us a lot of those ideas.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, on an article that I read, it said that you guys manage your relationships with the manufacturers and track pretty much every step of the process. And then you go on Instagram live and you take the feedback of the customers or the people, your followers. What inspired you guys to do that, to really bring in their feedback?
We always thought that there was a lot of room for new innovation in beauty. Beauty is full of innovation. It's amazing, but there always seems to be something new on the horizon. And some of the coolest ideas were coming from our customers anyway. And I think that you can learn a lot by meeting beauty devotees, if that's a word, who are super passionate about the types of products that they want to see. And by bringing them into that process, they not only became some of our best customers, but also they've become big brand evangelists because they've had an active hand in creating a lot of these products. And then, of course, our team does a ton of creation too. We have an incredibly creative and awesome team. And I think they're really empowered to do a lot of fun exploration and new innovation.
Oh, I love that. And so you're the CEO and you're scaling these businesses, and you're obviously a part of the process of them feeling empowered. So scaling a business, how do you deal? Like, you deal a lot with employees. And would you say you're more of like a process system focused type of leader, or more like empowered, creative, that type of leader?
Yeah, I think that we've been so lucky that our team is fantastic, and I think that we're really putting in a lot of processes. Every 6 months, it seems like every time the company triples or even doubles, there's a sort of a breakage in old process, and you have to create something new.
Mm-hmm.
And we've empowered people to do that within their teams. I think that's one of the challenges of learning to grow a company is not being afraid, is hiring people who love the change and love the constant the constant evolution of, you go in the very beginning, everyone does a little bit of everything. And then as you get bigger, you have to specialize. And so, there's some people who really love that process and they love the growth. And some people who don't, but we've been so lucky that a lot of our team is just, has really come to the table with that curiosity and that excitement to really grow themselves as well as the company.
Yeah, I think it's so important as to have anybody that's involved in a business being super successful to embrace evolution and growth. And so I love that you guys do that. When you were looking for your team, was it just like through your network that you were able to find good people, or what was the process like to hiring a good team? Because I know there's a lot of beauty companies and beauty entrepreneurs listening that's something they struggle with, because I know, being my own beauty boss, people are not going to do it how I want to do it. So what are some advice, and what was that process like for you and growing your team?
Well, twofold, as far as how we recruit talent and then also how we grow talent. I think to answer your first question, I'm sort of always in the talent recruitment phase. So we're always looking for great, awesome humans to join the team. So I think that's a huge part of any CEO's job. I'd say it's almost at least 20% of their job, if they're in a high growth company, is spent recruiting and vetting and, really seeking out those extraordinary people. And then the second part of your question about how do we grow the talent and learn to delegate and sort of let people go. I think that I probably have a lot to learn when it comes to process. And I'm sort of growing in that category. But then one place that I think has always been a strength is that we tend to set a really clear message throughout the company of what we're trying to achieve. And then we let really smart people roll with that. And that, even though it's an imperfect system, like all systems are imperfect, it seems to work really well for scaling. Because you can't sort of micromanage what people are doing when you're in rapid growth mode. And so I think there's always a little bit of letting go when it's your baby. So, but if you don't let go, you can't actually scale your company. So,
Wow.
early on, I think my partner and I really learned to hire people who were smarter than us in the categories that we needed, and then to really to let them lead in the way that they wanted to. I think it's a little harder sometimes when we have this amazing crew of people from the very beginning. And for those people, sometimes there's always challenges when you're putting a boss in between when you hire more and more senior people. But I think that remessaging the concept of like, this is what we're doing. And that goes back to the idea of looking for talent that loves change and loves the idea of working with someone. When you have 1,000 customers, it's really different than when you have 200,000 customers than when you have 500,000 customers. So it is a much different type of business, and it requires a totally different type of skill set. And I think the CEO's job is to constantly be seeking out the people that really understand those steps in the company, which are so different, and finding the right people for the right time.
Oh my gosh, that was so good. And, like, I love that you said that you share with the vision, you find the people that are committed to growth and being in that vision, and then you let them like step into their expertise. That's what I believe a true leader is in this day and age, because you can't micromanage, and people are really starting to wake up to the fact that, if they're not evolving, then they're just going backwards. And that's not just with yourself personally, but that's with your job, with your business, and anything. And so I love that you bring that into your business, and it shows in your culture. Like you guys are fun and you bring so much magic to your products. But then at the same time, it
Yeah.
sounds like you're creating that culture within your company, which just, that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think we're lucky. There's always challenges in growing a business. I don't think all the entrepreneurs I look up to, of all of them that I know, they all have different styles, but I don't think any one of them said it was all a cakewalk going from 0 to 60. So, but I think that if you have really, if you have a North Star, which is in our case to create joy for the customer, and everything goes through that, that sort of influences your purpose filter. And if all the things in the company kind of go through that purpose filter, it makes it a lot easier to step away and let people roll. But it's always challenging to come up with. It's easy to come up with solid KPIs and things like performance marketing or wholesale sales or things like that are very quantifiable. I think it's a little harder to create those solid KPIs around creative and innovation. But I think that the discipline there is really necessary. Otherwise, you can't give people like a way to win.
Yeah, totally. And I think something that you mentioned that really resonated with me, that I the first time I've heard it, but the purpose filter, like that's so intriguing. Like you are so intentional. I can feel that you put so much intention in with this company, which is so cool. Having a North Star and having the clarity and purpose and making sure that everything goes through the purpose filter to be on track. So what would you say, what are your company's values?
Oh, so we have our core values. They're written on the wall. We're Our number one core value is that we're in love with our customer. So she's the number one. She's sort of the archstone of the whole business and the messaging. We're fast as lightning. We are ready for change. We are up to the task. We we reward innovation, but we worship execution. So, which we stole from someone. I heard that once, and I thought it was so amazing. Like ideas are so great, and you want like a constant flow of steady ideas, but execution is probably worth double its weight. Just because you really need people who can kind of pick up the reins and go.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And something that you said in one of your interviews, you said that this is what's really moved me. You said, don't do things or pursue careers because you think they're expected of you. Do what you truly believe, and when you're working really, really hard, it won't feel like work, aka execution. So where did this realization come from? It's so inspiring.
I think that someone told me once, do the thing that makes you forget to pee. So if you're sitting at your computer all day and you forget to go to the bathroom and you're like, oh my gosh, I really have to pee, and you run to the bathroom, it's those things that get you really excited and ingrained in things. And I don't want to gloss over the fact that there's always challenges, and I feel like I have, the more I grow, the more I feel like I need to. I think that there's always, like, leadership is always on a mission to try and improve, both from a tactical standpoint and from a strategic standpoint. But the things that really are exciting kind of keep you going during those times when it feels really, really hard. It's the stuff that you're really passionate about, either the customer or the product, or the channel. Like those things are, if you dive into those and lean into the things that make you excited, I think that can be the gasoline to get through the parts that are really crappy, because everyone has to deal with are and all of the stuff that is not as, and maybe that's the stuff you love, or but for a lot of people, it just depends on whatever thing that you really really like. In my case, it's the customer and a lot of the creative, that makes all that stuff worth doing.
Yeah, and I think what you're bringing up is so important to touch on, because regardless whether you're just having your own standalone, beauty salon, or you're helping grow a multi-million-dollar company, like, realizing that you are going to have to, growth requires those hard times. Getting to where you're trying to get to, you don't know what you're going to have to overcome, what you're going to have to pivot on, what you're going to have to change, what you're going to have to go through, embrace, let go of, to get to that next level. And so I think it's super important what you said is to, like, embrace it and lean into it so you can continue moving forward. Because I know that there's a lot of people that get stuck on that, and then they sit there, they park there, they live there, and they never continue moving forward. Where did you get that drive? How did you, do you have things that help you get through those times? Obviously you have a great team you work with and that sort of thing, but it really truly too comes down to you personally.
Sure. I really do love the product. Like, I'm super passionate about the products that we make. I think that they're really fun. They're products that I want to buy. So that makes me happy. And I think in a products business, that's one of the nice things about it, is you get to touch and feel something physical. And that feels meaningful, like your work created something. I have a really good group of other female entrepreneurs that I think are super important. That's, somebody asked me the other day, like, what is the thing that you couldn't do without? And I think that's that group of friends that are really supportive, some of which have smaller businesses, some of which have much bigger businesses. But it's really nice to have a group that you can lean on for advice, to sort of just commiserate, just to have someone who kind of knows what you're going through. So I think and male entrepreneurs too. I have some male entrepreneur friends as well. But I really do think that my female entrepreneur friends are the ones that that you're going through a lot of the same stuff. So it's really nice to have that as a support system.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I resonate with that deeply, because we're like more emotional. And so to be able to talk business, but connect on that emotional level, really, I think helps you get through those hard times and continue to evolve and continue to grow. So I agree with you. I think it's amazing. Speaking of females and males, with the current VC landscape, not a lot of investors are like really focused on beauty or women. So for anyone looking to raise funding in the beauty industry, what would your advice be?
So my advice would be my overarching advice would be to kind of steel yourself for, I mean, we have raised quite a bit of venture. Well, we've raised $8 million in venture capital. And we're lucky to have really great, awesome partners. That said, it took a long time, particularly in the very beginning, to find those partners. So I think you have to be emotionally ready for, for sort of a long haul. And I think you should ask yourself before you go into a VC world, is this something I want to do for at least the next 5 to 6 years? And know that not every business is the right business to be VC backed. There's definitely some, where different types of capital make a lot more sense. VCs back businesses that have the ability to scale really, really quickly. So they have a metric that can, that can clearly be huge quickly. And so I think that is the other kind of filter to walk through, is like, what is this the right type of thing? Because it takes so much time and energy and effort to raise VC funding. It becomes a full-time job for many months. So I think that just being ready for that. And I think it is a little hard. It's certainly, I mean, the data says that it's much more difficult for women to raise venture capital. That said, we need this group of women out there doing it, because if we give up because it's tough, like we haven't made any progress. Like we have to just keep pushing through.
Hmm.
Um, they're some of the best entrepreneurs in the entire world are women. In fact, I think maybe the best entrepreneurs in the world are women. So,
Yeah, yeah. I
girl
love
power.
that. It's girl
Uh,
power for days. I love
totally.
that because something I'm learning how to negotiate. I'm learning how to stand in my power. And I think most of my life up to this point, I was like the world's biggest people pleaser, but I'm learning in business and growing different businesses. Like you got to boss up, and there's nothing wrong with, drawing the line and keeping that line right there and knowing your worth. When it comes
Totally.
to asking for, something or putting yourself out there and just being in that power is so important. Not only for people to take you seriously, but for your own self. Like there's so much more that we could do if we learned how to, like you said, boss up, be, girl power, being in that space, and also to with clarity, and that helps a ton too. So like you said, those questions are amazing, making sure that you are clear, that you can scale the business, that you're finding the right people, and also it's a full-time job. So if you guys are
Yep.
wanting to do that, be ready to boss up.
Yeah.
which
This is
which
so true.
actually that actually leads me into the next kind of question. But quote is what you said, dudes didn't get us. So at the beginning, I know that obviously it's been a process to getting to where you are now with Winky Lux. And I think this is a common thing, not just with dudes, but just women or people in the beauty industry that are looking to grow, that have these dreams, that have these visions. There's that some people literally don't have anybody that says go for it, support your dreams, keep going. And I think that holds a lot of people back from pursuing these, intuitive things that they really feel called to do. So what advice would you give someone who doesn't really have other people, believing in them or believing in their dreams?
I think that should be a big part of your. If that's the case, then it should be a big part of your a big social goal to go out and find those people, because you have such limited time in life, and if you are spending so much time with people who aren't that into it, and perhaps it's your parents or something like that, and in which case your job then is to build a network around yourself of people who do believe that. Certainly not everyone you love and care about is going to always believe in everything you do, but I think that given that you have such, we all have such limited time, like the people you spend time with are really going to affect your long-term outcome. So I think that, finding the people who really you admire and who believe that you can do what you're going to do is just imperative. And people who've also been through the challenge, because sometimes it feels really overwhelming when you're in something and it feels like, how in the world can I possibly get to the next step? And usually, maybe it takes a couple of asks, but usually I found, at least for me, it just going out and finding those people who are there, who've done it, and asking them, can I get you can I buy you a cocktail? Can I buy you a coffee? Can we meet up? I promise I'll only take 15 minutes of your time. I'll bring you a bunch of samples, and and I would just so love your advice on something. And then listen to their advice. You don't necessarily always have to take it, but just be really respectful of the fact that they're kind of giving you this time, and that can help with a lot of, like, when you get into those plateaus. At least that has been my go-to when we plateaued on something, when something has just felt so overwhelming. Finding someone who's already been through it and cracked the code makes it seem, even if you don't use the same tactics, it makes it seem obtainable, at least for me.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're getting like a different perspective, and like someone who's on the other side, whether they through what they're suggesting that help them, or you find your own way, they're on the other side. And so that makes so much sense. And I really love what you said about asking, because one of my biggest hurdles probably 4 or 5 years ago when I first started on my entrepreneurial journey was putting myself out there. And I think there's so many people that they're these days have this perception like, oh, I'm just going to post on Instagram or whatever, and people are going to fall into my lap. And it's like, no, like even someone who's a CEO of a multi-million dollar company, super successful, still is asking mentors for advice and finding that. And so if you're listening and you feel stuck or you feel plateaued, don't be afraid to ask. Like, what's the worst that could happen? They say no. And a lot of people, if you're looking for the,
right?
yeah, they're like, no, you're too, like most of the people, if you're in the right space looking for and are hungry for that authentic mentorship or just advice, or you're hungry enough, the people that you want in your circle will give you that time. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. For the most part. Yeah, I totally agree. There, I, I think that, having, a good example is like we were, we were looking to raise capital and we really didn't know where to start. And we had been rejected by, 4 or 5 VCs that we knew. And I called up a friend of mine who'd raised a bunch of venture capital. And I said, would you mind if we just grab a quick bite to eat? And we started talking and I was like, yeah, we've had 4 passes. And to me, that seemed just so overwhelming. And she was like, oh no, we talked to about 60 funds in our first raise. So all of a sudden, everything that felt so easy, like it looked on the outside. And I think too that the press in general, the press loves a 10-year, they love an overnight success story, but usually those overnight success stories are 10 years in the making. Very
Mm.
rarely is something that magical. Like most of the time it's the culmination of a lot of hard work and a lot of people working for many, many years and maybe trying something different that failed and pivoting and iterating and pushing forward. Very, very rarely is it sort of like, hey, we just hung up a shingle and all of a sudden, we're millionaires. It just really isn't that easy.
Yeah.
So it does require a lot of time and energy. And I think that, yeah, to your point, building that network and then being able to ask them will be really super helpful.
Yeah, that's amazing. And something you touched on too, which kind of goes off of something we said earlier, but understanding that this journey, your first thing may not be what it is that your long-term vision might not be what the first step is that you take. So like if you have one business, it might not be the business you're going to, put 6 plus 7, 10 years of your life into.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, YouTube was a dating platform. It was originally built as like a dating server, not a service, but like a dating platform. And then it pivoted and became YouTube. I mean, Yelp pivoted. Lots of major companies started off as something else and pivoted. The trick is that you try to measure your success. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, you kind of try to you try to figure out either a different way to make it work or a different thing that that may arise as an opportunity too. I mean, a lot of times you start something and you don't realize like what the white space is until you get in it and your customers start telling you, oh, do you have this? Or, can you also do this thing? Yeah, I think it's a constant journey.
yeah.
Not to
How
overuse that word, but it is.
Oh,
It
it
is.
always is. I
It's a
love
life.
that word. I'm like, life's a journey and it
Yeah,
never ends.
yeah.
So you're the CEO and you before were in finance. Did you see yourself getting like, how did you become the CEO of this company? What was that journey up to that point of being here?
I think that I was sort of entrepreneurial most of my life. I had a business when I was in high school charging people for rides to school. So basically, the basically a high school version of Uber. Charge
That's
people for the bus and
amazing.
take them to school so they didn't have to ride the bus. And my marketing tactic was I had a younger brother and sister, so they put all the APBs out to their friends, and then and then I became a luxury chauffeur service.
Oh my
Not
god.
luxury. I had a pretty crappy car, but I did provide bottles of water. So
Oh my
that
god, this is good.
yeah, so I think that I've always looked for white space, but I'm not sure that it was specifically in my mind that this would be what I would do. I think I have leaned into curiosity throughout my life. Like I've been really interested in things, and I've wanted to learn more from people. So I think that's kind of what drove me to this. I was interested in beauty manufacturing. I met a manufacturer and I wanted to understand how that worked. And just the more questions I asked and the more information I asked, I learned, the more I started to craft this idea around this. So I think that it's totally I think that the best entrepreneurs that I know have sort of a lifelong sense of curiosity. And I mean, they also are not afraid usually to say what they don't know. I'm always skeptical when someone is like, this is exactly how we did it and we figured it out from the beginning. I'm always like, I don't know if that I've never seen that actually happen. Like it's usually a long journey of failures and learning, and there's a lot of humility built into it. So I think that again, anytime I used to read articles about how it was so easy and this person built this huge business, and it was like they figured out this one little thing, and that was the rocket ship that they rode to the moon. And then the more I got lucky and started to really meet some of those people, and then also just some of the stuff that was written about us, about how easy it was for us to build our company, which of course is not true. It's been a really it's been a slog, but it's a beautiful one too. So I think that, I'm always mindful of not thinking, that that's the magic part is the building, is creating the team, getting people to work towards the same thing, inspiring your team to create something really valuable to the customer. That's been the magic part.
Wow, I love that. And I really appreciate your authenticity, because I think being in the position that you are, it could be easy. You could come up here and be like, yeah, we're a lightning speed. Everything's good, like what other people say sometimes. But, the more that I know, the more I realize I don't know. And so I'm with you on that, where it's like, I think admitting to that you don't know certain things, or that you're like trying to find the answers, you don't know everything, it keeps you humble and it keeps you curious. It keeps you on that, well, I'm going to figure it out, because that stubborn bone, in me that I have always pushes me to like wanting to figure it out.
Totally.
So when you were younger, did you, like, obviously you were entrepreneurial, you were Miss Uber before Uber even existed, but what was like your childhood like? And you said you had siblings too, so kind of go a little bit about that.
Yeah, I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, by way of South Florida, so mostly in the southeast, and yeah, it was totally different from the northeast. But I obviously live in New York now, and have been here for 11 years, which is just
Wow.
crazy. But when I was 8 years old, we came here for my mom had a business trip here, and so we came to New York, and we made the cardinal mistake of staying in a hotel in Times Square, which is not something to do. I don't recommend staying in Times Square, but we didn't know, so we stayed in Times Square. And I remember my mom saying, "Oh, I can never live here, look at how crazy it is." And I thought, this is exactly where I want to live. This is awesome. I really can't wait to be an adult so I can come and live in this city. Yeah, I think I was sort of drawn to this this kind of lifestyle. And I've always loved people. And I think that's probably you don't have to love people to be in business, but you should probably not be in a people business. I mean, there's certainly people who are totally, introverted who do great in things like, in certain financial roles or, analytics or programming. But I do think, so much of building a company is human beings. So it's a long-winded answer.
No, I love that.
I have a brother and sister who are awesome. They're like my best friends. So they're great.
Are they back in Florida?
They are, my brother lives in New York and my sister lives in Atlanta.
Oh,
So
fun. That's so
around.
amazing.
We get to see each other a lot, which is nice.
That's so cool. And it's funny how you said you couldn't wait to move to New York. You like the hustle and bustle. You're a go-getter. I mean, it makes sense. I'm just the same way too. I'm like, if I'm ever just like sitting there, which never really happens, I'm like, oh, I need to do something. I need to go somewhere. I need to meet up with somebody. And so I love that you said that. So, can we go a little bit into Winky Lux, the name? I'm super curious how you came up with the name of this amazing company.
So I wish it's one of the questions that I get asked all the time, and I wish I had a better story for it. But the real story is that we were looking at, my business partner and I were thinking up funky, fun names, and Winky Lux is one that just kept coming up over and over again. And I was really adamant about using Winky Lux. And I think at the time, well, subconsciously, I think it was very influenced by a Christopher Guest movie called Best in Show, which is one of my favorite movies. And it's a really silly mockumentary about a dog show. And the dog that wins is this very cute terrier named Winky. And so I think subconsciously that affected my love of the name. And it's just super fun to say. And the whole idea of the brand was always to create something really fun and joyful. And so, as much, there were tons and tons of names that had, that all sounded kind of similar to what was going on in the market. And this just felt really differentiated. And there was a lot of opportunity to turn Winky into sort of a brand avatar. So we talk about Winky as like this poodle who's our mascot. It's an imaginary poodle who's our mascot, who's like very indulgent and sassy. And it's kind of fun to play around with that concept.
Yeah, that's super memorable too. Like when you say Winky Lux, like you can't forget it, and you wouldn't get it mixed up, because I don't really know of any other company named Winky Lux. So that's super cool.
The one problem with it is it's a W, so it's always at like the bottom of the list of anything. So we were at a conference the other day, and they were like talking about some of the companies, and we're always like at the very bottom with W. That's my only complaint about it.
You can just add an A. A dot Winky Lux.
A dot Winky Lux, exactly. Triple A Winky Lux.
Triple A, there we go. Keeping you up there where you belong. Oh my gosh, that's so great. So how did you figure out the model of connecting with your customers? Because you guys, I know that you started online, right? And then you opened up some shops in Chicago and LA and a few other places. So
yeah, we have stores. We have 4 stores, and we've done some really fun pop-ups. And I think that's a big part of our growth for the next year or two is our own stores. But we're also available in every Sephora, and some other retailers, both lifestyle and specialty, and we're available in Sephora Europe as well. But as far as talking to the customers, that probably was influenced by the beginning of our business, which in the very, very beginning, we set out. This is a great story about pivoting. Actually, if you have time, I'll try to
got time.
I'll try to make it quick. We originally started out to build a tech company. So we thought we would build a marketplace that would curate beauty products from other people's brands. And while we were doing that, we also thought, wouldn't it be great if we had our own brand? And so we started looking at beauty manufacturing, and I already had spent some time in beauty manufacturing because of my time in branding. So I already kind of knew enough to be dangerous. I would not say I was an expert, but I knew a little bit, enough to have the blind confidence to roll into it. And then we began to wireframe out this marketplace. As part of that process, we ended up doing a big focus group. And the focus group was really enlightening because we interviewed about 200 women between the ages of 16 and 29. And it took us about 2 months to do it. At first, it was really informal, and then it started to get a little bit more formal. And this was a really big part of how we also, learned what our customer wanted. So we started to ask them to dump out their makeup bag and tell us why they purchased the products that were in their makeup bag. And we were giving them a free lipstick when they did this. It's amazing what people will do for a free lipstick.
Yeah.
It was like a free lipstick, and I've forgotten what else. I think it was like a free liner as well. And so the first thing we learned is that people did not care about the marketplace. They did not see the value of it. They didn't think they would care to use it. They didn't need curation, or they felt that they didn't really see the value in having someone pick out color products for them because they really enjoyed doing that. And so we sort of, that was a really important thing for us to learn before we spent more time on that project. But one thing that did kept one like pattern that kept emerging was that a lot of women would dump out their makeup bag, and they would say things like, they would point to something that was a drugstore product, and they would say things like, for instance, I only bought that because I ran out of my good stuff. Or, you should actually try that. It's actually really good, even though I bought it at the drugstore. So we learned that there was almost this like embarrassment around having some of those mass market products in their bag, and then they were really proud of a few like really high end products like a Chanel lip gloss. So that emotional connection that they both had with the high end product, and this sort of embarrassment that they had, we weren't leading them to say that. We weren't saying like, why did you buy this? We were just like, tell us about each product. And ironically, my business partner had sort of fresh eyes, and so he was also like, it's strange that women keep apologizing for this. And so we kept kind of diving in. And one thing that was exciting was the idea of being able to buy something that had really beautiful packaging and really clean, high-end formulations that was just a few dollars more than a drugstore brand. So something in the world of what they called masstige, which 4 years ago was just starting to come onto the market. It really was not a thing that people talked about 4 years ago. So you had prestige and you had mass. And even if you walk into an Ulta, the store is split into two. There's prestige and there's mass. But the reality is that women don't necessarily buy that way anymore. They don't go to, just 10 years ago, women, most of their purchases, at least in prestige, they were going to a counter at Macy's or a department store. And the woman there was sort of teaching them all about this one brand. And then Sephora kind of changed the game, and social media changed the game, and everyone, forget how they were buying the products, they were discovering the products in a totally different way. And it didn't matter, which category it was really falling into. What really mattered was the product itself. So we set out to create Winky Lux, which is really accessibly priced beauty products. I wouldn't say they're the cheapest on the market, but they're not super expensive either. So, something that's super reasonable, you could go and buy, a really great chunk of makeup and feel good about it, that was cruelty free, It was paraben free. It was free of all of the nasties that we are now talking about, which back then, again, that was just sort of the infancy of people talking about kind of clean and cleaner beauty. At the time, there was really clean beauty was really like, it felt kind of hippie. There was a lot of like, oh, you DIY this in your kitchen and put, baby powder as, on your face, or not baby powder. Sorry. Definitely not baby powder.
Baking
You can
soda.
put baking soda on your face with an egg white. So, that doesn't really always resonate with a customer either. So, that was the genesis of Winky Lux. And every time we make a product, we do think through, is this something beautiful enough that you would give as like a precious gift to somebody, because you want that, like everything from the time she looks at it to touches it, feels it, opens it up, smells it. It's one thing everybody does in beauty. If you walk into any Sephora or Ulta, and you start thinking about it, you'll watch people smell beauty products all the time. It's very sensorial. And they do it sometimes without thinking about it. I do it constantly. I smell, the scent is so related to memory and to experience. But the whole process, does it feel special? Does it feel like something that you would give as a gift? And if it does, then that's good. Then we can move forward with that product, because that's what you do when you buy a beauty product. You give yourself a little present, and usually it's something that it always fits. It isn't, it's always joyful and fun to participate in. It doesn't have, it's not so expensive. It makes you feel guilty. When you go to the store and you buy like a really cool jacket or something, you walk out and you're like, oh, I should not have bought that. So there's very little guilt associated with it. And that the ingredients would also be something you'd be proud to use. So that was the whole background behind Winky Lux. Now you'll know the whole story.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I just I feel like you embody what it is that you're doing with creating this brand. And it's just so amazing, because it's when people are intentional, I feel like it creates more longevity in their business, and you're super clear with your intentions on what you do, down to the smell, and knowing why the smell matters, because people put memories with smells. And so these are such great nuggets, because I know our listeners, can take this and have some sort of creative point of difference in their business. Because it does matter. Don't look around and see what everybody else is doing. How can you be different?
Absolutely.
So I love that you brought that, and I really appreciate your time. And I know you're a busy lady, and you got the world to save. So before we get done, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners today?
I mean, I'm just so grateful that people love our products, and thanks for listening to this story. I'm always amazed that people want to hear what we do, but it's really just a blast. It's really a privilege. So I'm extremely lucky. I'm very grateful. And thank you for having me and thinking of us.
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much for your time. And if the listeners want to check out your brand, where can they find Winky Lux?
Oh, every Sephora. Please go in and ask for it. And if they don't have it out, demand it.
Yeah, real quick, I remember looking, the number one thing that stuck out to me when I was scrolling through your Instagram, there was this clear lip gloss, I guess it would be, with flowers in it. And I was like, I need this. I need this in my life. Yeah. It's so pretty.
Yes. It's really beautiful. And please and sign up for our mailing list, because we have something even more fun with flowers coming out soon. So be the first to know.
Awesome. So the mailing list, they can get on that winkylux.com or
winkylux.com.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Where we have a lot of or pop into one of our stores, which are really magical.
Okay. Thanks for bringing your magic today, and appreciate your time. And You guys, if you want to check them out, go check them out, leave a review, subscribe, connect with them. I know that they're going to value your opinion because that's what they're about. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for joining the Wearebe podcast today.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.